Hello, everybody. Again, this is Reinhard Klatt, certified high performance coach, and I'm welcoming you to our seminar Letting Go of 2020. What has held you back? Yesterday, we started out with a very good session. I talked a little bit about the life event that I went through that led to the writing of the book, Letting Go Saved My Life. And then we covered a couple of chapters in that. For those who don't know my story, or those who have not had a chance to be there part of the webinar yesterday, please go back and see the replay. I'm sure it will be very helpful to you. And again, thank you very much for joining us. And I commend you for spending the time to work on your personal development, on your personal growth. And as I said yesterday, letting go is sort of a little bit like taking the foot off the brake before we step on the gas and then apply the high performance habits that or the things that make people really more happy in life and in business and successful in business. Those kinds of things we teach those or coach those as high performance coaches. But also we need to first take the foot off the brake, because if we apply the gas, we can do that as much as we want, while if we have the other foot on the brake still, that's not going to get us very far. So as I mentioned yesterday, my life experience was that as a student pilot, I got into what they call a graveyard spiral during my third solo flight. And after dropping out of the sky, and I just say this very briefly, and after dropping out of the sky about 1,000 feet, I let go of all the controls because I didn't have a clue on what to do, how to get out of it. It wasn't part of our training. I basically let go of all the controls and said, God, take this plane. And that instantly got me out of that downward spiral and saved my life. Hence the book, book title, Letting Go Saved My Life, on which this seminar is actually based on. It's available in print on my website, as well as on Amazon, and in print, as well as an ebook and also an audiobook. And we have a CD available also on my website, or an audiobook that you can get on Amazon. So just check this book out, because it will help you a lot in digging a little bit deeper for yourself, as we are going into pretty much the same topics as through this seminar. So today's topics are actually two. One is ego, and that covers the area of pride, goes from pride, the whole spectrum from there, all the way to lack of self-esteem or low self-confidence. And starting out, and then we also want to talk a little bit about habits if we have time at the end as well. And always feel free to go back to the replay, but I want to make sure that you take some paper, get some paper ready, a journal or so, and do some writing, write down some thoughts that come to mind as we go through this material. So the first topic is pride, letting go of pride. Now, why is that important? Well, it's funny. I was born and raised in Germany, in Southwest Germany, and it was pretty much considered to be a bad thing to be proud, especially when it came to national pride. Growing up in post-World War II West Germany, any form of national pride was pretty much driven out of us. And even in school, I mean, we were told, your country has such a bad past. There's no sense of maintaining national pride. And also, excessive national pride has led to all the events in World War II. So we were clearly told there's no virtue in having pride. So when I came to America, first as an exchange student, later also working here and being married here in North America, I was a little bit surprised when I perceived that in the North American culture, especially in the US culture, that there is that pride is almost perceived as a virtue. And so I was kind of surprised about that. And we have still some people joining us here, so I'm going to let them in just a second here. Alrighty. I think they can join in as they or just want to listen. Uh, that's awesome. So as I mentioned, pride is a considered a virtue almost, or it's perceived that way. When I came to America, so many people were saying, I'm proud of this, I'm proud of that. And so that confused me a little bit, because especially when I was dealing with people in Christian circles, which when I thought, well, I can read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, and still I don't find anywhere where pride is a virtue. And I'm sorry about this. There's still somebody trying to join us. All righty. So we'll just continue now with this. So pride again was considered a virtue, but then I said, wait a minute, I can read the Bible from Genesis through Revelation, and I don't find any place where it's a virtue in any way. It's actually considered to be a pretty bad thing. Now, where does this idea come from that pride maybe have positive things? And so I looked up the dictionary definition, and there's actually a bunch of positive synonyms attached to the word pride in American dictionaries. And so I realized, okay, so this is a different concept in the culture. It's not just necessarily the biblical concept that people are talking about when they're talking about pride. So if it has positive connotations as well, or positive synonyms, why then is pride an issue? And I want to go a little bit into that, and as well as what we maybe possibly could say if we mean pride in a positive sense, but we don't mean it in a negative sense, how we could use that as far as what language should we be using, or at least from my perspective as to what has been helping me along those lines. Now, why let go of pride? Well, pride is one of those things that actually robs us of our objectivity. And that has probably become you've probably become aware of that as well. And also it sort of creates an us and them thinking. It generates a group thinking, and everybody who's part of my group, I'm going to treat differently. I'm not going to be really objective. And the lack of objectivity I think is a big issue. I recall an incident where many years ago, I was working for a corporation that had ties to China, and we had some colleagues from China come over and visit, and they did a presentation talking about the history of China and how America was involved in the liberation of China during World War II, actually liberating them from the Japanese occupation. And so they said we were very thankful for that, and they reminded us of the rape at Nanjing, where a lot of hundreds of thousands of people were killed, and a lot of people were raped by the Japanese in the city of Nanjing in the south of China. So they reminded us of that. And then I had an opportunity to have dinner with them later that evening. And we talked a little bit about it. And for some reason that issue came up. And I said, because they seem to be very proud to be Chinese. And I said, well, that was pretty much driven out of us in Germany after World War II. And I told them that my concern with pride is it robs us of our objectivity. I said, as an example, in their presentation in the morning, when they told us a little bit about Chinese history, I said, you were quick to point out what the Japanese people have done in Nanjing. But what about the millions, the tens of millions of people that were killed in China by Mao Zedong, by the Chinese themselves? What about that? There was no mention about that. So I said, the problem with our pride issues, whether it's national pride or whether it's personal pride, is that it robs us of our objectivity. So that's one of the big things. And that's why I personally have my issues with it. And maybe if you analyze it a little bit in your own mind, you may find the same thing to be true. Now, but what about the positive synonyms? Well, the problem is whenever we use a word that has positive and negative connotations, depending on how you use it, it tends to be a little bit vague. And the way I see it, if our language is vague, if it's not precise, if it's not clearly defined, then our thoughts are not clearly defined. And if the language is not clear, then our thoughts are not clear. And the communication to other people isn't then not clear because they don't always know what we mean. Maybe from the context and by our demeanor, they can sort of find out or deduce as to what we mean. But it's still, for me, it just doesn't provide the clarity that I like to use. So what I do is when I mean a positive synonym, what I find in the dictionary, for example, if I'm very pleased with something, if I appreciate something, I will use the word I appreciate that. I will not say to my children, I'm proud of you. I will say that pleases me very much, or that makes me very happy, or that gives me joy if you do something nice and good and behave in the right way. So I use language that is very clear to them. And then it also does not convey the thinking, because if I say to a child, for me, I was thinking if I told my children, I'm proud of you, they say, oh, they can think in their mind, okay, my dad said I'm proud of you, so it's okay to be proud. And maybe in their mind, especially as little children, they may not make that clear distinction between pride and being, in a negative sense, ego pride or arrogance or haughtiness, and that kind of pride. They cannot distinguish necessarily between that and the fact that I'm pleased with them or happy with them and that they give me great joy. So I'm just trying to use clear language so the thinking is clear as well as the communication. And that brings me to another word that I'd like to use here. What is the opposite of pride? The opposite of pride is humility. And there is also a challenge again. There's true humility and then there's fake humility. And the synonyms that are used in the English dictionary go all over the place. They use, true humility as well as some of the fake ones. To me, true humility is very, very important. Why is that important for somebody who wants to grow, somebody who wants to experience personal growth? And that is, when we have humility, we can have a growth mindset. That means we don't think we have arrived yet. We realize that we fall short. We all fall short. And that we all have room to grow, no matter where we are in our maturity level or personal or spiritual growth level. We all have to grow. Nobody is perfect. We're all hopefully on the path of growing, but in maturing, but nobody has arrived. Nobody has arrived. So we can, with humility, we are always open to continue to grow. Humility also means that we take personal responsibility. We don't use excuses and blame other people for our own shortcomings. And with humility, we also ask ourselves, what is right, not who is right. It doesn't matter so much who is right when we have a debate with somebody, but we try to figure out what is right, what is the right thing to do. That's the focus. And when we have humility, we will also not be thinking in terms of rank or status. Then it won't matter where we are on the ladder, corporate ladder, for example, or whether it's in the military or a school or even other relationships. So humility is really, really important, again, to continue to grow. But there's also, as I mentioned, there's fake humility. Now, what is fake humility? Fake humility to me is when people think to be poor is to be humble, or to be shy, or to be timid, or to be insecure, or to be fearful, or to have low self-esteem, in other words, no confidence, or we have some limiting beliefs about ourselves. That's all not true humility, especially not lack of confidence, because confidence and humility can coexist. I think they actually mutually help each other. And I was thinking when I was at an event, at a growth event with Brendan Burchard, who trained us as certified high performance coaches. I said to him, you know, I had never met somebody that has as much humility and confidence at the same time as you do, I told him. And I got to think about it. You know, humility and confidence is something that basically all the great men in the Bible have at the same time. They were all very confident and they were humble at the same time. And confidence is not to be confused with pride. Pride, what we discussed earlier. Because when we are confident, we can also admit we don't have a problem saying, okay, yeah, I still need to learn or grow in this area. With confidence, we can be open, we can be honest, we can be truthful. We don't have to hide things. And that allows us so we can be humble. And when we are humble, we learn more, we grow more, we develop more skills or whatever it is. And then in turn, because we grow when we grow in competence, because of our humility, because we are thinking, yes, we need to grow and learn, then we can also grow. That automatically will grow our confidence. So humility and confidence, they really help each other. You know, when I was young, when I was very young, I also struggled with confidence sometimes. And it was based on negative self-image, in the sense that I struggled in some areas in my life. I mean, for example, in fifth grade, I had to take English as a foreign language, as a second language. And it was tough. I struggled to get a passing grade. And my teacher was actually the same teacher that my mother already had years before. And so she said, well, your mother was never any good at it, so what do you expect, you know? And so that sort of put a damper on me and my confidence, as you can imagine. And even when I, in athletics, you know, I was not good as a kid, not at all. I mean, track and field days were my most dreaded days in school. I hated it because my numbers were off the charts. Now, I'm not talking the top of the charts. They were off the charts on the bottom of the chart. I was so bad when it came to track and field athletics. It was pitiful. So from that sense, I struggled with confidence, as you can imagine, as a kid. That had a big impact on me. But what I also realized later on, thankfully, I realized learning English is very, very important. Just in my field, I became an engineer, worked in the corporate world internationally most of my life. And I knew at some point when I was a teenager still, I needed to really get good at English, and I worked at it. And I would have not in my wildest dreams imagined that I ever write a book in English and get a 4.9 rating on Amazon for it, you know. But it's the one thing there when, you know, you're meant to do something, you're meant to write something, you're confident that you will be given all the resources and whatever it takes to get that done, it will get done, no matter what you think your limits are. And so that's what I want to talk a little bit about, you know, developing confidence. You know, not only did I struggle with English, even writing essays, I usually got C's and sometimes a B occasionally, but I would have never thought that I'd write a book. No way. But again, if you're meant to do something, you don't need to be limited by some limiting beliefs that you may have about yourself or lack of confidence because of what people told you, what you're capable of doing. You can do whatever God or what you're meant to be doing. So also what I want to contrast a little bit when I say about confidence, that we should, any sense of pride, if we can replace that with confidence, it will be very helpful in the sense that, I think pride is very concerned about what other people think about us and how we can impress other people. Whereas confidence is focused on acting on our best understanding with a clear conscience. Acting on our best understanding with a clear conscience. That's really the focus of confidence. And if we do that and we focus on serving people rather than impressing them, that makes a huge, huge difference. Again, pride is concerned with impressing other people. It causes us to be easily offended. But when we are focused on confidence, we will be focused on doing our best with a clear conscience, and then we get so much better results. Now, confidence is something that we would want to build within ourselves, but also we should build confidence, or should help build confidence among other people, especially children or anybody that may report to us or that we deal with on a regular basis. Maybe people work for us, or anybody that we interact with. And how can we build the confidence, and why is it important for us to build confidence? I'm sure you have all realized or experienced situations where people lacked confidence. And I think when we lack confidence, it creates somewhat of a vacuum in us, inside of us. And what is that vacuum filled with? Oftentimes that vacuum is filled with pride, and then it has all its negative consequences. So it's important to build confidence. And when it comes to our children, I was growing up in an environment where people were saying, no complaint is enough praise. So we did not get a lot of praise as children, and that didn't help our level of confidence. And I have observed through my own children now, and my wife is very different. She grew up differently, and she was really good at praising our children in the right way. And it turned out that the fear that the saying was based on, no praise, no complaint is enough praise, that the unfounded fear was that children will not be humble. They will be arrogant if we praise them too much. And I have found actually just the opposite is true. We have found from our own experience with our own children, they're very confident. The praise gave them confidence, but not arrogance. And because they're confident, they didn't have a vacuum that they had to fill with pride, or felt like they needed to fill with pride. So my wife and I were thinking about this phrase, and we turned it inside out. Now we're saying no praise is a silent complaint. No praise is a silent complaint. So whenever you think about it, whenever you are concerned about praising somebody, in doubt, always praise them. And find a way to praise people, because what you will do is you will raise their level of confidence, especially children. And you're not going to help their pride. No, it's not. It's confidence. And there's a big, big difference there. So hopefully that is of value to you. The other thing that I want to talk about a little bit, there's a couple more chapters that sort of cover this whole range of ego in my book. And the one thing that also doesn't help us with confidence, if we hang on to past guilt and shame. That typically does not help us, to grow in our confidence and to make the best contribution. I think it's a distraction. For example, when I was growing up, my sister was very skinny, and I teased her about it. There was nothing that she could do about it, but I teased her about it, and that hurt her, and that had an impact on her, for her self-esteem when she grew up, or for her confidence. And that was sort of I realized that was wrong, and it was hanging over my head for a long time. And in the end, I realized there's only one way to get over this, is to fully confess that it was wrong, to fully repent, turn around and say, don't ever do anything like that again. And then go to my sister and ask for forgiveness. And that had a healing effect. Carrying that guilt and shame with me for years didn't do me any good. But finally, coming to full repentance and turning around and, saying sorry to my sister and asking her for forgiveness, that then made a change, not only, of course, to me, but to my sister as well in the relationship. So that's what we need to do, is when we are dealing with past guilt and shame. And it will also help with our confidence, just like everything that we do. When we act on our best understanding, and our best understanding is we should turn around and repent, and we should ask for forgiveness, then we can put it behind us. Another example was when my mother was in a nursing home in Germany, and her health started to deteriorate quite a bit. And my sister called me one time, or she sent me an email actually, and told me, your mother sat there very sad, and she said, my boy's not coming, my boy's not coming. And that was just before Christmas. And so I asked my other sister, who was a little bit more closely involved, shall I come and visit? And she said, well, to come over here for 3 days doesn't make a lot of sense. You can come in the summer and then spend more time with her. Because of her dementia, she will forget right away that you were even there anyway. So, it doesn't make sense. So I decided not to go. A couple of months later, she had a fall, she broke her hip, and all the stress of the surgery and so on that did her in, and she passed. So I did not visit her one more time just a couple of months before she passed. But, I could have carried a lot of guilt with me and dwelled on this a lot. And I felt bad initially, but then I thought, that doesn't help my mother anymore. If I just carry that guilt and shame with me, what can I do? So I made it a point to visit or call elderly people that I knew of that were alone, either alone at home or alone in their nursing homes. So that's what my mother would want me to do also. So that's how we can deal with past guilt and shame. Just turn around, move forward, ask for forgiveness, and then just focus on doing things right from then on. And that's how we can make a difference. And that's how we can redeem ourselves. And that's a good way of moving forward. Now, the last topic I want to talk a little bit about today is how I grew up when it's talking about habits and habits that don't serve us. The way I grew up was, again, in Germany, and it was very common to have either some beer or wine for dinner every night. And that's what my dad did, and I picked up that habit, and I did it for many, many years. Then when my dad passed away at the age of 77 of pancreatic cancer, I learned that actually my dad had gotten into the habit after he retired. He retired early at the age of 58. When he retired, he started to drink more. Now, it was never a situation where he was acting like a drunkard, but he actually had a bottle of wine every night. And, since he didn't act out when he had that wine, and since he didn't have to perform the next morning, he was retired, it never was brought to light that this may be an issue. But I learned also that this drinking so much wine probably contributed to his pancreatic cancer. So I was seriously considering to do, what can I do? And I realized I don't want to get there. So I changed that habit dramatically in my life and reduced my alcohol consumption considerably. I've not cut it out completely. It's sometimes still a little bit of a challenge, especially in social situations. But it's something to seriously consider. We have to always ask ourselves with any kinds of habits that we have, how are they serving us? Are they good habits that serve us? Or would a little bit of discipline overcoming those habits serve us much more in the long run? If we continue those habits that we have, will they result in long-term regrets? Remember, short-term discipline weighs pebbles, maybe. It's not very heavy. It's not all that hard. But long-term regret, that weighs boulders. So let's think about that. Whether you're dealing with discipline weighing ounces or regret weighing tons. So whenever it comes to habits, ask yourself, what are the consequences long-term? Short-term, they may not be huge. To have that extra bottle of wine or whatever in the short term may not make a big difference unless you get behind the wheel of a car. Of course it will. But in the long term, ask yourself, where is this going to lead to? And is that where I want to end up? So just some thoughts about your habits there. So I want to open it up a little bit now for some questions, and I want to ask you also some coaching style questions. First about pride. Where has maybe your ego stood in the way of your personal growth would be one question. And if somebody wants to raise their hand or ask or say something, please let me know.
Hi, Reinhard. Can you hear me well?
Hi, Faye. You are calling from Lagos, Nigeria.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a bit of noise around me. That's why I muted initially.
Yeah.
So I've been following what you're talking about. I think the thing that struck me right now is that issue of balancing of confidence and humility going together. I have found that my challenge is twofold. One, how do you know when you're walking in humility? And secondly, won't walk knowing that you're walking in humility suddenly become a form of pride? I've always sort of struggled with that. So my best attempt at walking in humility has always been to understate myself and to understate to understate what I'm, the things I know and all of that. And this was initially pointed out to me by an executive coach I had some years ago, when he said to me that I was walking in humility to the point of looking weak and incompetent at what I was doing at the time in the corporate world. So it's still a bit of struggle. So I don't know if I managed to put in a question or two in there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think a lot of that stems from a lack of clarity about those words. That's why I was going into those in my book chapter as well. There's not a clear distinction in the mind of a lot of people between pride and confidence. And so when we are confident, then when we're confident, that's not a contradiction to humility.
Okay.
And I find that especially in people of faith, which I know you are as well, they struggle with that, and they don't have that clear distinction in their mind. And one of my clients who struggled with that a lot, I told him, I sort of basically gave him permission to be confident. I said, look, all great men in the Bible, whether you're talking about David or Moses or Abraham, they were all very confident and humble at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, and when we are, and I talked a little bit about that humility, if we clearly understand what humility really means, that it doesn't mean poor or shy or timid or insecure or fearful or having low confidence. That's fake humility. And I think some people they fake it so well they're proud of being humble. You may have heard that expression before.
Yeah.
You know, they put on a pious air about themselves, and they like hunch over and their shoulders are low, and instead of, you know, walking upright and confidently. So is there something that has it been pointed out to you? Have you been accused of being arrogant or anything like that by people?
I think there was a period in which, because I'm personality wise, on the Enneagram, I'm a 5. So I tend to I tend to love knowledge. I gather a lot of knowledge. I read a lot and all of that. So
Yeah,
almost normally in a conversation, if I'm commenting on something, I tend to just share all the knowledge I have about it and all of that. And I think
yeah,
over time that has been perceived as arrogance.
yeah,
So what I've then been doing is the opposite of that, kind of, that even when I know enough about something, I tend not to say as much as I know, especially in a business setting, because I'm
yeah,
mindful of being perceived as arrogant.
yeah. That's interesting. Now, let me ask you this, or maybe this would help if you ask yourself, when you share that knowledge, and whatever that knowledge is, when you share that knowledge, what is your motive about sharing it? You know, if we share something with because, for lack of a better word, I guess, for showing off, because we want to demonstrate how much we know and leave an impression, that's one thing. And then if that's our motive, it will come across as being arrogant. But if our motive is, okay, what about this knowledge that I have would be helpful to the people that I'm speaking to? Am I serving with when I share this knowledge, am I serving the audience or the people that I'm speaking with? And I think if we approach it from the mindset of being of service, then chances are much more that we will not be perceived as arrogant.
Okay. Okay.
You know, to share it with that information, and I'm telling you about a personal experience. I worked in technical sales for the automotive industry for a long time, and sometimes I would go and take development engineers with their PhDs to a customer. And then what I found is they would give presentations in which they would share all this information and brag about all the stuff they knew, but it wasn't helpful to the client. You know, they didn't ask themselves, what is the benefit to the client if they buy this product? So, for example, instead of explaining the benefits of an air conditioning system, which the client would be interested in, they would explain how the air conditioning system works, which they couldn't care less about, you know.
Yeah.
They couldn't care less about all the knowledge that the guy had, and it had all the physics and everything behind it.
Yeah.
So if that would be one thing, to ask yourself, what is my motive and how am I serving with my knowledge? That is one thing. The other thing is that I find, even if you have the right motive, and just think of the story of David when he was, when they were dealing with Goliath. His brothers thought that they interpreted what was confidence on his part, on David's part. They interpreted that as arrogance. And you will always find people that are insecure. No matter what your motive is, you will always find some insecure people thinking you're trying to show off or you're trying to brag. I don't think that you can completely avoid it. But I think you can drastically improve it if you always ask sincerely, what is my motive here?
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Incredibly, because I have to admit that I never pause to ask that. My mindset is often I see a situation and then I just go with all the knowledge out there and start, so this is quite helpful for me. I mean, pausing to think what my motive is and how do I help or serve the other parties, as opposed to being too internally focused.
Yeah. I had a speech instructor, and he told us how we could overcome the fear of public speaking, and not be so nervous. And he said, if you always focus on your audience and how you can serve your audience, what value you can provide to your audience, if that is your focus, then you will be a lot less nervous than if your focus is, how can I leave a great impression with people? So I put a sticker on my window here. It says, serve, don't impress.
Nice. I like that.
Serve, don't impress.
I'll follow that as a mantra.
Yeah. Because that is that changes everything. And people will notice that. People will feel that. They will sense it. And then they will. The thing is this. You may be saying something, you may have read something or heard something, and later find out it wasn't quite so. There was some misinformation mixed into it. If your focus is on learning and growing, and that's where the humility comes in. No matter how much you know about a subject, or let's put it this way: the more you know about a subject, the more you also know that you don't know. The more you study, the more you realize, oh, there's still so much more to learn, and there's so much more to grow, and so much more, to just develop and to mature. If we always keep that in mind, if we don't, the problem is we compare ourselves among ourselves, and then we say, okay, I have more knowledge than the other person, therefore it sort of, my heart is lifted up. But I heard somebody say something very profound. He said, humble power is to be open to learn from people that we don't look up to. I must admit, I've had situations where I said, oh, what can this guy teach me, or this woman teach me? Look at her life. But then if we say, okay, maybe they still know something or have a perspective on something that I don't have. Maybe there's still something I can learn from that person. And that gives us a lot of power. Again, the humility actually helps us to learn more and to grow more. if we're arrogant and we think we know it all or we can do it all, we're not growing. We're not learning. It creates a barrier in our mind to more learning and more growing. But if we're willing to learn from anybody, no matter what their circumstances are, maybe at least be open-minded that they may be able to teach us something, then we can, there's no limit to what we can learn and how we can grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as we do grow, then our confidence level goes up, because confidence is also linked to our competence.
Okay.
And with true humility, let's say you're invited to the Queen for tea.
Yeah.
What makes that possible, that you don't get? What is it that makes it possible to go to the Queen for tea without being nervous?
Oh wow! I couldn't think of a reason not to be nervous.
Well, you're confident. You're confident that you go in there with the idea that maybe you can serve her. What can I do for the Queen? What can I give her? How can I show respect? How can I honor her? If that's the focus, we don't have to be nervous. Because if we are gracious, the other person will be also gracious. And I'm reminded, for example, when she had a dinner, a state dinner, and they had some bowls with water on the table. And they were there so people, because they also had some finger food, so people could sort of clean their hands a little bit. And one of the guests came from a country where it was custom to drink water out of a bowl. So he took the bowl and drank out of the bowl, and some people saw that and they were snickering, and the Queen sensed that. You know what she did?
What?
She took her bowl and drank from it.
Wow.
So if our focus is on serving the other person, our focus is on giving them love, if our focus is on just serving them and making them comfortable, then we don't need to worry about, then we forget about ourselves. I had an experience hiking in the Swiss Alps with a group of people. And it was pretty scary because there was like slippery trails. And if you fell, you could have fallen into your death there. It was very steep. I mean, there was a rope we could hang on to, so it was okay. I think it was safe enough, but I was kind of scared. But there was a woman there who was 10 times more scared than I was. And my whole focus was then turned to making her feel safe. And I completely forgot about my own fears. My sister was a Girl Guide leader, and she used to be always scared of spiders. But when she was the leader of that group of girls, and there was a spider in the tent, and she was the one who had to kill it, that took care of that fear, because she was focused on serving her girls. So I think it has a lot to do with shifting our focus.
Yeah. Wow.
And again, I had that epiphany when Brendon Burchard spoke, that I said, you know, there's great humility and confidence at the same time. And if it's intimidating to some people, I think confidence can be intimidating to people who are very insecure. I mean, there's no question. And so, you know, we may tone it down a little bit in some situations, but pandering to the insecurity of other people, that's not really true humility. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it's incredibly helpful for me actually, because I tend to, the reason I bring out so much knowledge in an interaction is it helps me to feel confident. What I'm drawing from this conversation is, instead of focusing on me, I focus on the other person,
Right.
and then I can interact with them in a way that is more beneficial to them than otherwise. And
Yeah.
that's incredibly helpful for me.
Yeah. Good for you. I'm glad. I'm glad. You know, I'm very glad that you've called in, and I'm very glad because, you know, that alone showed a level of humility, calling in and saying, okay, I need to learn. There's something more that I can learn. There's something more where I can grow.
Yeah.
You know, and that will then help you with your confidence. You know, again, it's just that alone shows you how confidence and humility can coexist. I think they depend on each other in a way. Awesome, great. Well, thanks so much. We're already coming to the end of our time, but what I want to share with you, and I will send you a link. Did you get my email yesterday with the link to the replay?
Yes, I got that. I missed yesterday's session, but I got the link.
Yeah, and so there's the link to the replay. Also, I'm starting to have a group coaching session starting February 1st, and you have a link to that in the email as well. And also, I offer a free coaching session, like the high performance coaching session or transformational session, which is really geared towards leadership development and personal development. You know, trying to for people who try to accomplish more without being stressed out, without sacrificing their own health and relationships, which is something a lot of business people tend to do, or people who are in leadership positions. So that's something I offer a free coaching call to see whether that coaching program is right for you. So you can just look that up, and we can schedule that whenever that works for you. And there's a link to my calendar where you can schedule that as well. So just check it out on my website, and I'd be happy to help you in any way I can.
Thank you so much. I'll do that. And
Very
I
good.
look forward to the rest of this series.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate it. And for all those who see it in the recording, I'm glad you could at least listen to the recording, and I hope you benefit from that and can participate in the next couple of sessions. And if you miss any one of them, again, you know, there's always access to the replay if you sign up and register for it. All right. Thank you very much for calling in. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.